This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here on this show. Make sure you always keep an eye out if you're subscribed, if you are hit the notification bell for this post. When I say if you have Q&A questions, drop them down below. That's how you get your questions onto this video. With that being said, let's jump into the question. This one comes from Crypto Mar, who says, "Hey Q, DW was elite at throwing the ball deep with the Texans. How much of this do you think we'll see under Kevin's offense? I'm worried we won't see enough of it." Well, I think there's reason to be concerned. I think there's reasons to be encouraged. If you look at DeShaun Watson's season in 2020, one of the things that stands out, and I think the most elite stat of that season, is his yards per attempt. I think it's like somewhere like 8 or 9. It's some ridiculous number that nobody else has matched. And that's because he was taking a lot of chances, throwing the ball deep. You have to remember the Texans weren't very good that year, so that's going to affect how many chances DeShaun's going to want to take with the ball. And the defense stunk, so you needed to score a lot of points in order to win games. So again, it's going to affect the mentality. His mentality might be different this year, and that might not be a bad thing, right? Where he's like, hey, let me not risk it because our defense has us in position to win, or we're already in a position to win, or we can rely on Nick Chubb running the ball. The whole show doesn't have to be there. So yeah, they're going to take advantage of some of his deep ball capabilities. I think that's why Elijah Moore's on the roster, to allow more guys to be able to go deep. That's going to be there for him, but it's not going to be as much as you saw in 2020 because I don't think that those circumstances are going to be necessary. And if they are, then that's a little bit more of a problem than him not throwing deep enough. As far as Kevin Stefanski's offense, we know that Baker Mayfield, the 1 year where he really dedicated himself to following this offense and following Kevin Stefanski, was fine throwing the ball deep. The issue with him was that he just abandoned the offense the year after that because he had issues with Stefanski, and then the labrum injury happened, and he threw a bunch of interceptions. So yeah, that's what I would say. I think the deep throwing ability, they're going to take advantage of that. DeShaun's going to throw deep plenty. Not going to be as much as in 2020, but still enough for it to be a regular element of his game, or at least it should be. The next question comes from Cam McBird, who says, "Hey Q, what are your expectations for Grant Delpit in this upcoming season? I think he is in the perfect position for a breakout year with the addition of Jim Schwartz. And how do you think our improved defensive line takes pressure off of our safeties?" Another great question here. Thank you, Cam, for asking it. My expectations for Grant Delpit, I really don't have many. I don't have great expectations for him or low expectations because I just am interested to see what he becomes as a player. You know what I mean? The Browns aren't really in a position to where they need Grant to be anything more than what Grant has been. If he is more than that, then great. But if he's not, then, you know, it is what it is. So with Grant, he's in a position where I just want to see if some of the stuff from last year carries over, right? The run stopping ability that he had, the nose for making plays that he had, especially near the line of scrimmage, I thought was very impressive of him. So that's really what I want to see from him. What does the improvement on the defensive line do for Grant Delpit? I don't know if it does much for the safeties because their job is kind of the same no matter what. I guess it can help because you know that they're not going to have all day to be back there, but that's more or less for your corners than it is for your safeties because the corner is going to be the one that's being asked to guard wide receivers closer to one-on-one than a safety would. I think for Grant, the addition of a Juan Thornhill, the addition of a Ronnie McLeod, who can play those true traditional safety positions, is what takes the pressure off of him, because now he's allowed to kind of do some of the Grant Delpit stuff that makes him special, instead of having to try and be a free safety or having to try to be a strong safety. He kind of can work with that safety blanket over top of him, and be in a more hybrid position where you can take advantage of the strengths and weaknesses that he provides you as a football player. So that's what I think is going to take some of the pressure off of Grant, not necessarily the defensive line. The next question comes from Sam Oliviero, who says, hey, I was seeing on social media how DeShaun kept throwing picks to Ed Reed Blankenship, is what they're calling him in Philadelphia. And does this concern you at all, or is it just a part of practice? Would love to hear your take on this. Keep up the good work. Yeah, here's the thing about interceptions in practice. They mean nothing. Well, let me rephrase it. They can mean as much as you want them to mean. That's what interceptions in practice are. If you want those interceptions to be a big deal, they can be a big deal. Oh my God, he's throwing interceptions. We've seen this story before, right? If you don't want it to be a big deal, it's not. He's a veteran quarterback. He threw a couple interceptions. He's just trying stuff against an elite defense to see what he can give away within the regular season. There's a plausible explanation for both. And when the situation is that vague, that open, that you can make a clear argument or a clear explanation for both that sounds like common sense, I tend to think it's a zero non-factor, right? It's nothing positive. It's nothing negative. It's just practice. That's where I'm at with it. I have seen stories of quarterbacks throwing tons of picks in practice, and then they throw like 5 of them in the season. I have seen stories of quarterbacks throwing no picks in practice, and then they throw a ton of them during the season. It's practice. We cannot evaluate practice like you evaluate a game, because a game is a game and practice is practice. They're different things. Those interceptions might have a good reason for coming up. Those interceptions might not have a good reason for coming up. Me and you don't know, because me and you didn't even get to watch those interceptions. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing we have to be careful with, especially in the joint practice setting where there's not going to be a lot of footage out of team drills. We're relying on the observations of maybe 30 people at the practice, and who knows how hard they were paying attention. Who knows what they were specifically paying attention to. That's why you need the video, because the video can give you the opportunity to pay attention to the quarterback, and then you can rewind the video and you can pay attention to the wide receiver, and then you can rewind the video and you can pay attention to the linebacker, and you can rewind the video. You get what I'm saying? You can focus on more than one thing. But when you're watching it live, and also, like, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a practice, if you are covering for the team at a practice, you don't get to sit high up. You have to be at ground level. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen NFL football at ground level, but it's hard to tell what's actually going on. Like, it doesn't look like it does on TV. It's very difficult to discern these things. So even trained eyes will see something they didn't see in that situation. I say all of this to say, eyewitness accounts from practice are unreliable. And because they're unreliable, you shouldn't put too much stock into them positively or too much stock into them negatively. They're really just things. You pay attention to them, keep a track on it, but that's not going to be what matters when it comes to the evaluation of that player. So I really don't think it matters that well. I think it matters in a way, but to us, the viewers at home who aren't really a part of the team, just fans of the team, I don't know how much of it matters for our evaluation, because we can make of that whatever you want to make of it, and it'll sound valid. And that tells me that there's really nothing to make of it. So that is my thoughts on that. Thank you for that question, Sam. The next question comes from Peter, who says, hey, Q, how vital do you think Elijah Moore is to this offense? If he were to miss a few weeks, is there anyone else who could fill his role while he's out Thanks for the great content. Nobody on this roster is going to be able to do what Elijah Moore does. That's why you traded for him, right? If somebody on this roster could do what Elijah Moore does, you would have kept your second round pick and you wouldn't have traded for Elijah Moore. So no, nobody's going to be able to replace it, but that's fine. Nobody can do what Amari Cooper does. That's why he makes $20 million. Nobody can do what Nick Chubb does, because that's why he makes $14 million. Nobody can do what Myles Garrett. Good players, there's nobody who could fill the role of good players. So when good players miss games, it's not about who can fill the role. It's about what you can do to make up for that role not being there. If Elijah Moore cannot play or he misses a few weeks, it's going to be more about Amari Cooper and more about Nick Chubb. It's going to be a more balanced attack. You see what I mean? So it's not necessarily who's going to replace Elijah Moore. Nobody's replacing Elijah Moore because, again, if you could, you wouldn't have traded for him. It's about what is the adjustment if we can't go to Elijah Moore? What weapons on offense do we have to rely on? It goes back to the thing I said at the beginning of the year, or the beginning of the offseason. The reason you want to bring in more wide receivers, the reason you want to strengthen this passing attack and to strengthen this defense is you want to give your team as many ways to win as possible. Last year, the Cleveland Browns had one way to win. Slow offense, running the ball. That's basically it. If they could limit your possessions and they can run the ball well, they could win games. But if it came down to a shootout, they couldn't win that. If they went down a little bit, they couldn't win that way. If this was a defensive battle, they can't win that way, right? When you have less ways to win and the ways you have to win is very narrow, the less games you're going to win. Now the Browns have multiple paths to victory. You're hoping, hey, if it's a shootout, we can keep up. We can be explosive just like you. If this is going to be a grind them out kind of game, we can do that. We've been doing that. We can grind it with the best of them. If this becomes a defensive battle, we can play that way. We can win that kind of a game. The more ways you have to win, the more likely it is that you win games. And if Elijah Moore is out, that might take away one way to win is, hey, look, you might not be the most explosive offense in the world, but you still might be a good offense without Elijah Moore. You're just going to be moving at a little bit of a slower pace. So that's what I think they would do if Elijah Moore is not out there. Next question comes from Legendarius. Nice pun there. Who says, any chance we keep Nick Harris on the roster? I think he's been pretty okay in the preseason. All signs point to him. He's probably staying on the roster. What's been interesting is that Luke Whippler has been playing a little bit of guard. So they feel like he has some swing versatility between center and the two guard positions. And I think that's how Nick Harris is going to stay on. Luke Whippler is going to be more of a swing guard and a third string center. And Nick Harris is going to be able to be the backup center for this team because they did feel like he was starting quality last year. So that would make sense for them to do. And since Luke can play multiple positions, that saves Nick Harris because now you don't have to keep Luke because he can only play center. You can move him around. Nick Harris is in the unenviable position that he can't play guard. He's too small. We've seen what happens when he plays guard in the NFL. It's been ugly. So since he can only play center, he'll be the backup center, I think is what's going to happen with him. Scully says, hey, Q, how similar do you think the Browns offense is to what Chip Kelly runs at UCLA now that we've added 11 personnel packages and are working mostly from shotgun and pistol? DTR has looked very decisive and Felton looked significantly better in the last 2 years. And I wonder, to the comfort level of schemes have anything to do with it? No, this scheme's not anything similar to what Chip Kelly runs at UCLA. So Chip Kelly runs a spread that's kind of similar to the spread that you would see when Cliff Kingsbury was at Texas A&M, not Texas A&M, Texas Tech. And it's some call it like the run and shoot. But what it is you line up in shotgun and you use screens as an extension of the run game. So it's kind of like the West Coast offense, but out of shotgun most of the time, and it's tempo. That's the thing with Chip Kelly's offense is tempo, right? It's one play, RPO, throw a screen. One play, RPO, throw the seam. one play RPO, run the ball. You know what I mean? It's quick plays. It's real quick. It's not about a complex offense. The Browns offense is not similar at all to that. No NFL offense is similar to that unless it was Chip Kelly ran when he was in the NFL. So no, I don't think just 11 personnel does not mean you're running the Chip Kelly offense. 11 personnel is a package that every offense uses. The Browns even used 11 personnel last year. Shotgun and pistol are included in that. So no, that doesn't mean that it's similar. And this offense is not similar. I think the reason DTR looks better, to be honest with you, is because he's not in Chip Kelly's system anymore. I think Chip Kelly's system was something that does not benefit DTR as much as this kind of still inspired by the Shanahan style system does for DTR. I think that's DTR's ultimate fit, and I think that's his best fit, is in a Shanahan style offense. That's where he looks his best because he's great with his feet. He's great being on time, and he doesn't have a strong arm, but he does have the ability to throw well to spots on the field. That's what the Shanahan system's great for. So I think it makes sense that in Stefanski's Shanahan style offense, he looks good in it. And again, the Shanahan style doesn't have to be under center. I think a lot of people make that mistake. There's a lot of shotgun in the Shanahan style. There's a lot of pistol in the Shanahan style. This is still a Shanahan style offense. So yeah, especially when DTR's out there. When DeShaun's out there, it's a little different. They're running things to a different tempo. But when DTR's out there, it's a Shanahan style offense. Next question comes from the Ohio kid who says, "What's up, Q? Been impressed with Dawand Jones in the preseason. Has Bill Callahan had him take any snaps on the left side at all during camp, maybe to cross-train him?" The Browns have a philosophy with young players, which is, hey, we're going to teach you how to be good at one thing first. And I agree with that. It's a good way to go about it. So they're not going to cross-train him early in his career. It's going to be similar to what they do with James Hudson, right? James Hudson's first year, just play right tackle. Second year, be good at right tackle. Third year, all right, we're going to let you play a little bit of left tackle. You know what I mean? So I think we're years away from Dawand Jones playing on the left side, if he ever. And again, now I don't know when the last time he played on the left side was. Maybe high school. He might not be a left tackle. But that's it for today's Q&A. You guys have a great night. Have an even better day.